Victoria's Secret Pure Seduction.
It smells so good.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. Although I will tell you, I have a hard time walking into those stores, and you might likely have a hard time walking into those stores when we finish today. Whew, that's strong.
Old deodorant.
Got it.
New deodorant.
Gotcha. All right. Awesome. Well, you've got a good stash. And I love this stash because I think this is really reflective of what most people use. So you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So the average woman uses 12 personal care products before she leaves the house every day. And there's no makeup here.
I have makeup too. Yeah.
Right. So
I don't wear makeup every day.
Okay.
I have makeup.
But sure, and that's also normal. Not everybody wears makeup every day, but the fact is that we do. And so this is a good spread. And it's really, I think this is kind of an eye-opening practice. Even if we know nothing about the ingredients in here, this is a lot of stuff that you're putting on your body, and we don't really think to question any of it. Nobody's ever taught us to ask, hey, is any of this stuff safe? It's just, well, it's for sale, so it must be safe, right? But there's nobody that's overseeing whether or not it's safe. So there's this big gap or this lack of connection between our health and any of these things. Nobody ever thinks these things have anything to do or may have anything to do with our health. So we all love the way things smell. In fact, smell is like a huge marketing tool. That's why
we buy things.
We buy things. It's the first thing that you do when you try a product in the stores. You pop it and you smell it. And companies that manufacture products using fragrance know this. It becomes their trade secret. That's their secret weapon. We think of the Herbal Essences shampoo that was the orgasmic hair washing experience, and they're actually using sex to sell smell, which is funny to me. Like with food, the first ingredient, it's in order of volume. So usually fragrance is one of the last things that's added. In this body spray, it's actually the third thing. So there's more fragrance in here than just about any other ingredient. And the chemicals that make up that fragrance often include an ingredient called a phthalate, which is an awkward word to spell. It's PHTH. You're never going to see that word on a label because they don't have to tell you that word. What they're just going to say is fragrance. Fragrance is a catch-all word. And it can include 300 plus chemicals just in that little word. And phthalates are a hormone disruptor. So they're known to interfere with your really delicate hormonal system and cause a number of effects in the body, everything from increased risk to breast cancer to other types of cancers, anything that's related to the hormonal system, which is pretty much everything: metabolism, digestion, stress, sex hormones. And these are things that are not just coming in one product, but they're in every single one of these products. And these are chemicals that haven't really been fully tested, and they're exposing us to hormone-disrupting chemicals, endocrine-disrupting chemicals that are completely messing with your internal thermostat. And are they an individual cause of any particular illness? We don't know. It's hard to say. But we're getting bombarded with them everywhere. And this is all before you've even stepped out of the bathroom. So your phthalates are also going to be found in different types of plastic and food storage containers, in your shower curtain, in the dashboard of a car. They're in use everywhere. And so while I can't worry about the ones in the car, this is a huge amount of exposure. So we can definitely worry about this and then work to change it. And what's awesome is there's alternatives for every single one of these products that people use every single day that don't include these chemicals, that are totally natural and that are performed just as well as these. And so what my hope is to help people transition away from these and more towards those, just so they can sort of turn down their personal dial of how many chemicals are coming into their body. And so fragrance is sort of the first indicator. So if you turn over any bottle and you see the word fragrance, that should be an automatic, oh, okay. Now, in some cases, fragrances are going to be natural essential oil based, in which case that's probably going to be okay. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe. Every one of these products on here could say natural and organic, but it's bullshit. Basically, it's just straight up.
It's not.
Well, yeah, so here's a good example. So this one says organic root stimulator olive oil. And I'm going to look at the ingredients to see. And there's nothing in here that indicates that
It's organic.
it's organic whatsoever, because yeah, there's nothing in here. And so
But if it had the USDA stamp on it, then you
And
can
it's
be like,
organic. Okay.
oh, okay.
then you would know
It needs a
not
stamp.
and you would also know that those are food grade ingredients.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like if you're able to eat it, then it's something that you can put on your skin. And you know, I'm not even going to challenge you to try to read the ingredients on here.
Some words I've never seen before.
Right, and you probably can't pronounce. I mean, first of all, if you see any ingredient label like this,
Yeah.
it's just not interested.
Now this is the Shea Moisture.
Yeah.
I use this. I have this one and the yellow one for when my hair is straight, just to moisturize that.
Yep.
I use this religiously.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, it says organic too.
Yeah.
Has coconut and hibiscus in it.
And so the ingredients are
Yeah.
here.
It has a lot of ingredients.
Well, but that doesn't necessarily, so if we
Yeah.
actually look at the ingredients on this one, deionized water, it's giving you the like Latin name of the chemical or ingredient, and that's
Shea
just
butter.
shea butter. And then you've got coconut oil, macadamia seed oil, mango seed butter, avocado oil, vegetable glycerin, aloe vera, silk protein, ammonium salt, neem oil, carrot seed oil, sorbitol esters, panthenol, which is a B vitamin. This is actually not so bad.
Okay, great. I love those products.
Yeah, and so here's what it's saying. So you see all these asterisks that it's
Yeah.
got? Those are certified organic
Oh,
ingredients.
so everything is not organic. So
Not everything. This is where you have to read actually read the fine
Yeah.
print, because
Yeah.
it says organic, and this one actually does have organic ingredients. This one, however, says organic, and it's total bullshit.
Yeah.
Petroleum's in here a couple times. You've got methylparaben, propylparaben. These are also endocrine disrupting chemicals linked to different types of cancers.
Would you mind just giving her a quick rundown what the endocrine system is?
Yeah,
Just so everyone
so
knows that.
sure, absolutely. So the endocrine system is I sort of refer to it as like this master regulator. It really regulates all of your hormone production. It's a very complicated, very intricate system. It's like a little thermostat. And your hormonal system, think of like, you know, we think of hormones and we think of like, oh, growth and development and puberty and sex hormones, but those same hormones or hormones within the endocrine system will also regulate your mood and your behavior and your digestion and your hunger, your metabolism, your weight. Like it really regulates everything. And so your endocrine system is designed to respond to like teeny tiny levels of hormones in the body, like in these parts per billion, parts per trillion levels. And what that means, to give you an example of a part per billion, if you think of like a 600,000 gallon Olympic sized swimming pool and you put a teaspoon, that's approximately 1 part per billion. And so that tiny amount in that massive pool is what controls your appetite and your hunger and your growth and your development, like those tiny levels and sometimes fractions of those levels. When we think about pharmaceuticals or medications that we take, those are all delivered in our body at these tiny, tiny doses. And birth control is delivered at, I think NuvaRing is the example that I give, and that's like one of the most popular birth controls used. And the dosage that gets delivered, I don't know if this is the daily dose,
Yeah.
but is, if I'm
NuvaRing is
stretching.
just the ring that goes inside of
Yes,
you
but
and you-
it's slowly releasing hormone. That's how it works. So that plastic ring is essentially embedded with hormone or whatever types of, I don't know what the mixture of estrogen, progesterone, whatever that's in there. But it's slowly releasing, and that's why, you leave it in for 3 weeks and then you take it out and then you put it back in. It's not like an IUD, it's releasing hormones so that you don't have to take the birth control, because people don't remember to take it every day.
Yeah.
And so and I'm trying to get this number right, it's 0.025 parts per million. That's the dose. So it's less than one of those teaspoons by it's like like a fraction of one drop, has the ability to prevent you from getting pregnant and all of the side effects that we experience when we're on birth control. Mood swings, weight gain or loss, bad skin, all of these things are huge results from teeny tiny exposures. So anything that's going to interfere with your hormonal system has the ability to have these really big impacts with these really tiny doses. And that's why the teeny tiny amounts that you're getting in here matter. So, fragrance I think is the number one thing that I want you to sort of be on eagle eyes for, just when this is the easiest thing. The other thing, which I started mentioning, are the parabens, methylparaben, anything that ends in paraben. These are more heavily studied. There's a ton of ingredients in here. I promise you that a lot of these have not really been studied, so there's not a lot of data, but there's been a lot of research into parabens. It's not totally conclusive, but there's parabens found in breast tumors, and they're able to migrate through the skin, and the majority of them are found in this upper outer quadrant, which is closest to where we're putting on deodorant. So there are some connections to be made there. They're not conclusive and they're not, concrete, but.
What about this deodorant? I got it at a natural health Middle Eastern store.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that that's much better than this.
Well, I'm going to give you the label, and I'm going to see if anything jumps out at you.
Sodium. Castor oil.
Keep going.
Fragrance.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a lot of BS and greenwashing in the personal care product industry because there's no regulation. So, and the natural food stores don't always read the labels, and they don't always know what these issues are. They're just say, it's herbal, and that's good, and it's aluminum free and alcohol free. Well, alcohol's not really the problem. And so this label is misleading, and they are telling you what it's free of, but we actually have to see what's in it. That's what matters, is what's actually in the product, not what it's not in it. I don't care what's not in it. I care what's actually in it. Yeah. The research about this is really only starting to come to the forefront. Yeah. So it kind of leaves us all going like, well, shit, why didn't if I'd known that these things could possibly have impacted my health in some way, I probably would have changed them a long time ago, but I didn't know. None of us knew. So we're all sort of in this same boat of going like, oh crap, okay. Well, now that we're starting to realize this, what do we do about it? And what we do is we switch to better products where we can, and we modify we drink our water in the morning, and we shift our eating practices, and we exercise more. Those are all proactive things we do for our health, and I consider this to be just one of those things.
Yeah.
And the beauty is once you get hooked into these products, like you really don't have to think about this stuff anymore. In the same way you don't think about this stuff now, you just use it. Once you switch products, you don't think about those either, you just use them. And so it's not really something that you have to worry about.
So I usually do a lot of hair shoots.
Okay.
Or I act a lot.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, when I do go on these sets and these makeup artists are there or these hairstylists are there.
Right.
Should I just bring my own products, and how do I nicely go about saying,
you do have control over the products that you just have to use your voice and say like, oh, actually I brought my own, I like this stuff better. And you can also just say, I've been using these other products because they have less toxic ingredients and I'm being very mindful of the things I'm putting on my body. And you don't have to say, and so should you, but that might just plant a seed of like, oh, what do you mean toxic? And you don't have to use this as a soapbox opportunity. And you've got cultures in different parts of the world that their version of beauty is stretching their lips out or stretching their earlobes out or straining their necks, binding feet. I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's a cultural thing, and the norms shift. I mean, Brooke Shield had big eyebrows, and at one point that was in, and then one time it wasn't in, and then it was back in again. And so these things are always shifting. even though we're doing it in a more subtle way in sort of in the Western society with makeups, these are body modifications. They're not stretching our skin out or, pressing our collarbones and putting brass rings on our neck, but it's still body modification. And, I consider in those types of places, it's very obvious, it's overt, you can see what the body modification is. In this situation, you can't actually see what the body modification is because it could be happening inside. And that's a problem. Have you heard of BPA?
I have heard of BPA.
Okay, and in what context have you heard of BPA?
I don't remember exactly.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Totally putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
So BPA became a really big issue a couple of years ago when it came to light that BPA was found in plastic baby bottles.
Oh yes. Okay.
Right.
I heard it.
Right.
Because
So
when I went to Babies R Us the other day, it said no BPA.
right.
So I was like,
right.
"Oh,
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. So BPA stands for bisphenol A. Bisphenol A is a plasticizer, and it's used to make plastics rigid, hard, and clear, or they can obviously add color to it. So translucent, but like glass. And so you've got your Brita water pitchers are made of polycarbonate plastic, and your glass baby bottles, and like the Starbucks travel cups that everybody seems to have, that they're like, oh, it's good for the environment because I'm reusing it. I'm not wasting cups. I'm not wasting paper or plastic. But the BPA, like the chemicals, some of the ones that are found in your personal care products, is also a synthetic estrogen. In fact, it was used as a hormone replacement in the 1930s. And then it fell out of fashion because they found another chemical to replace it that was more potent. And since around the 1930s or 40s, it's been used in plastics. And the problem is that the little molecules of plastic are not tightly bound. And so they're kind of hanging out on the surface, a lot of these chemicals that get added in. And that means that they're able to shed and drop out into the foods that we eat and the liquids that we drink. And that becomes a big issue with BPA, again, hormone disruptor linked to breast cancer, developmental learning disabilities, early onset puberty, a whole shit ton of really bad things. And like phthalates, it's found in I think 97 or 98% of people tested. And it's because of its use in plastics. Now, it's not going to be found in plastics like this, which are soft and flexible. So it's only going to be found in rigid plastics, which is why I wanted to pull one out as an example, because really they're ubiquitous, this type of plastic. BPA is just one of the chemicals in that family.
Yeah.
And what manufacturers have done is, in a lot of cases, replaced BPA with BPS or BPF. And they're like, but it's BPA free. So they're totally not lying to you. They're just they're not being forthcoming. And so people are like, oh, I have all this BPA free. And BPA or BPS, which is the most common replacement, is actually, in a lot of cases, more damaging than BPA. So this is why our government regulation sucks, because nobody's saying, okay, well, you just took out one chemical and replaced it with one that's worse to appease a worried consumer, but we have no idea what BPS is, or we don't know, it's free of BPA, but what did you put instead? We don't think to ask those questions. So for food storage, this becomes less of an issue for you because you don't have them, but just in the future, when you're out buying containers, to just stay away from this type of plastic. Totally unnecessary. You can get glass water containers, water bottles, or stainless steel ones, and those ones are fine. BPA is also found incidentally in the lining of canned foods, so everything from beer, soda, soup, anything that's in a can.
You can't eat anything in a can
Yeah,
anymore.
Good. High five, because nobody should.
Nothing at all.
While these might not have BPA in them, the plastics, polymers, and other chemicals that make up this plastic are going to migrate out into your food in the same way that BPA will. And so the example that I'd like to give that everybody seems to relate to, and you don't seem to have any, which is good news, is, oh, I have some lasagna or some tomato soup and I'm going to store it in here, and then it's going to be stained orange, and no matter how many times I wash it, it stays orange, right? And so the reason why that's happening is because there's typically going to be acidity or oil in the food product. So tomato sauce is going to be hot, oily, and acidic. There's 4 things that increase the rate at which those molecules will fall off, and heat, oil, acidity, and abrasion. So scrubbing it is going to, you can think about it logically, like I'm scrubbing those molecules off, and they're not going away because they're actually made, the whole thing is made out of it. So there's not like a point in time in which like, oh, it runs out. I've washed them all out. They're always going to be coming out. But what happens is the line between where the plastic ends and the food begins literally gets blurred. And so you end up with like pasta sauce molecules embedded inside the matrix of the plastics, like it's part of the plastic, which is why it doesn't get washed out. And that also means that those molecules are now in your sauce. So it literally blurs that line, and you get sauce molecules in your plastic and plastic molecules in your sauce. And we're eating those things, and these are, again, chemicals that are carcinogenic or hormone disrupting. And so it's all about turning down the dial. People always ask, there's oftentimes there's nice containers, but the top is plastic. And all I would say is, that's okay. If possible, don't fill the container all the way so that it touches the plastic. When you do wash these, you hand wash them and don't put them in the dishwasher, which you don't have, and I never had in New York. So not a problem, but hand wash these with like the soft side of the sponge, because we don't want to be abrading these plastic surfaces too much. If you want to store sewing supplies or buttons in them, they're totally fine. Plastic's not really going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but for food, I think that, it's unnecessary and it's unhealthy, and we're trying to get you to be as healthy as possible and take away the things that are potentially going to be irritating your system or overwhelming your system.